I want to start in perhaps the most important place, which is that this is a true human catastrophe. And most of us are directly or indirectly impacted by this. Many of us have staff in the region or relying on business partners. We run business in the region. Gartner is not immune to this. We have the same situation as many of you. And we've made some hard decisions for ourselves in terms of not serving some Russian companies that are sanctioned, not serving the Russian government, and being very, watching this every day to figure out what the best decision to make is for our people and for the business as well. So there are a couple of things I'd like to pick up on there that are generalizable. One is the importance of constant communication, especially at a time when people are feeling a lack of psychological safety. It turns out that honest communication, constant communication is one of the ways to make people feel safer. Now, this can be uncomfortable in some ways, and I've certainly experienced this myself at Gartner as we develop our messages and determine what research to do, is that the situation is so volatile and there's so many human emotions that are part of the response that you just sometimes have to admit what you know and what you don't. How you make decisions is very important to know kind of what the mechanics of decision making and language choices are, how to communicate to employees as we're learning as well. Our people are feeling this stress, this psychological stress constantly. And as senior leaders, as managers, as employees, as family members, we need to address those types of concerns. So you've been interacting with clients, you've been talking to supply chain leaders. Any insights you can give us here about what you're hearing, advice that you're giving, actions that people are taking specifically for supply chain leaders, but extended to managers in general?
Yes, so I think there is a very immediate impact when we're thinking about supply chain and key minerals and materials coming out of the region. That's, of course, the second thought of those leaders. We're thinking about the staff that is allocated to critical processes and managing critical processes out of the conflict region. And that is top of mind for many leaders. How are they doing? Are they safe? Can they continue to work? We need to get them out there. How do we get them out there? Once they pass that first thought, they of course immediately think the business impact, and there we see material shortages, we see material cost increases. Energy is a key factor to supply chain in any means. If there is no energy, there is no supply chain. Then we're thinking about, of course, other areas that you touched on that supply chains are sometimes a bit far from, like cybersecurity. And of course, in the midst of everything, we're seeing airspaces closed, we see the logistics route being impeded, and the congestion starting to transfer to other places that we already had a supply chain gridlock in the last 2 years due to the pandemic, and now before even this crisis, inflationary pressures coming through. So it's sort of panning out as sort of like the worst case scenario that many did not expect to happen, of course, in 2022.
So what is the type of advice that you're giving our supply chain clients right now in their immediate response to this situation? What can they really do right now?
I think it's time to make, like you pointed out, tough and timely decisions. So procrastinating decisions or waiting how things are going to continue in this volatile and fluid environment will put you into a disadvantage, especially when you're thinking about your human resources and also, of course, your business viability in the future. Things have changed even in the beginning of 2021 when subsidiaries that were based out of Russia had to convert their gains that came in foreign currencies 80% into ruble. And I think that kind of slipped under the radar, and businesses continued to operate. And now with the devaluation of the Russian ruble to a significant extent that even Russia is going to default likely in the next few weeks and days on its debts is significant. So when we're talking to businesses, we're really advising them to think about the viability of the business of tomorrow in region, and if it really makes sense to keep certain operations on a suspended level, or is it time to really move out and create redundancies geopolitically diversified, meaning in regions that are more independent from conflict regions that are not only Russia, Ukraine, but we have seen conflict regions also in other areas. South China Sea is an area that can become easily into a scenario like we're living out today. So that's number one. Number two is we have done a research end of last year in supply chain that showed that visibility, even on tier one, so basically the companies you are dealing with, getting products and services, and you're transferring payments, is not to an extent that you know all of them immediately, ad hoc, that you could actually see the impact and interpret the situation to the full extent towards your organization. We saw Volkswagen saying we didn't expect this to be so dependent into the region in our supply chain. We have, of course, manufacturing in Russia, but we didn't expect this to impact us so much. And they ceased operations there. So did Daimler, so did many other corporations. And when we're thinking about payment streams, well, they're basically going to be cut off since SWIFT is going away for Russia. So they're already leaning into Union Pay with China. And then cryptocurrency was a question I got, interestingly, in our recent webinar. Is that a bridge? Well, it will be a bridge as long as there's material flowing and you need to pay for it, but that is through the sanctions also impeded. So there is no necessarily bridge anymore because the economies are cut. And they're cut in a way unprecedented, I think, for decades that we haven't seen. So our advice is really look immediately into your visibility in tier one, think about redundancies, think about demand volatility, and first and foremost, think about your own staff in region and take care of them as much as you can.